Title: Flickering Shadows. The air in the movie theater was thick with an unnatural stillness, as if time itself had become a prisoner within those dimly lit walls. My name is Alex, and I found myself seated alone in a worn-out velvet chair, the only occupant in a dystopian cinema that echoed with the ghosts of an era long forgotten. The flickering marquee outside announced the film of the day, Eternal Dystopia. The title seemed fitting for the times we lived in, where the world outside these walls had crumbled into chaos. Governments had fallen, society had collapsed, and the once vibrant cities were now nothing but desolate landscapes. The movie theater became a refuge for those who sought solace in the forgotten art of storytelling. As the film began, the screen illuminated with a pale, sickly light, casting strange shadows that danced across the decaying walls. The dystopian nightmare unfolded before my eyes, a surreal reflection of the world outside. The characters were trapped in a city ruled by a faceless corporation, their lives controlled by a malevolent force that dictated their every move. The eeriness of the film seemed to seep into the very fabric of the theater itself. The worn carpet beneath my feet felt like the remnants of a forgotten reality, and the smell of stale popcorn hung in the air like a haunting memory. The projector's soft hum merged with the distant howls of the wind outside, creating a disconcerting symphony that echoed through the empty corridors. As the plot thickened on the screen, I noticed something peculiar. The characters in the movie were mirroring my own movements, as if the boundary between fiction and reality had dissolved. I shifted in my seat, and the protagonist mirrored my restlessness. I raised my hand to scratch my head, and the character on the screen did the same. It was as if the movie was watching me. A sudden chill ran down my spine as the protagonist, a rebel fighting against the dystopian regime, glanced directly at me. His eyes bore into mine, and I felt a connection that transcended the boundaries of the screen. A whisper echoed in the theater, carried by a ghostly wind that seemed to emanate from the characters themselves. "Help us, Alex," the voice pleaded, sending shivers down my spine. Unease settled in the pit of my stomach as I became an unwitting participant in this dystopian nightmare. The movie theater transformed into a surreal realm where fiction and reality intertwined, blurring the lines between the two. I couldn't tear my eyes away from the screen, captivated by the unfolding drama that seemed to echo the desolation outside these walls. The protagonist faced insurmountable challenges, navigating through a city engulfed in perpetual darkness. The once bustling streets were now abandoned, and the buildings stood as hollow monuments to a forgotten civilization. As the character delved deeper into the heart of the dystopia, I couldn't escape the feeling that I, too, was on a journey into the unknown. The air grew heavier with each passing moment, and the shadows in the theater seemed to writhe in anticipation. Whispers surrounded me, disembodied voices that spoke of rebellion and resistance. I gripped the armrests of my chair, unsure whether I was a spectator or a pawn in a larger, malevolent game. As the protagonist faced the ultimate showdown with the faceless corporation, the theater itself began to change. The walls warped and contorted, taking on the grotesque features of the dystopian city on the screen. I was no longer in a movie theater. I was a captive in a nightmarish realm that defied all reason. In the climactic moments of the film, the protagonist confronted the enigmatic leader of the corporation in a surreal, otherworldly chamber. The air in the theater crackled with an electric energy, and the walls seemed to pulse with a dark power. The characters on the screen whispered urgently, their voices merging with the dissonant soundtrack that reverberated through the theater. Suddenly, the leader of the corporation turned to face me. His eyes, devoid of humanity, bore into my soul. "You can't escape, Alex. You're one of us now," he hissed, and the very fabric of the screen seemed to ripple with malevolence. The theater trembled, and I felt an unseen force pulling me towards the screen, into the heart of the dystopian nightmare. Panicked, I tried to flee, but the exit doors had vanished. The once familiar rows of seats now stretched into infinity, trapping me in a surreal labyrinth. The characters from the film emerged from the screen, their movements jagged and disjointed like glitching specters. They circled me, their whispers growing into an ominous chant that reverberated through the warped corridors of the theater. I stumbled through the nightmarish landscape, the boundaries between the film and reality dissolving. The protagonist, now a spectral figure, beckoned me towards the surreal chamber where the final confrontation awaited. I had become an unwitting player in a dystopian narrative that transcended the confines of the screen. As I entered the chamber, the leader of the corporation leered at me with a twisted grin. "Welcome to eternity, Alex. Here, there's no escape," he declared, and the walls of the theater closed in around me. The characters circled like vultures, their whispers merging into a cacophony that drowned out all reason. In that surreal, claustrophobic space, I realized the true horror of the dystopian nightmare. It wasn't just a film, it was a manifestation of the collective fear and despair that had consumed the world outside. The theater had become a conduit for those emotions, a twisted mirror reflecting the darkness within us all. As the chamber collapsed around me, I felt a surge of overwhelming dread. The boundaries between fiction and reality shattered completely, and I became one with the dystopian nightmare. The screen itself became a portal, a gateway to an eternity of darkness. The last thing I heard was the chilling laughter of the faceless leader echoing through the void. The theater, once a refuge, now existed as a spectral echo in the desolate landscape outside. The marquee flickered, announcing the end of the film and the beginning of a new, eternal dystopia. And then there was only silence.